Los Angeles, a sprawling metropolis where the glitz and glamour of Hollywood often masked the city's darker underbelly, was a battleground for law enforcement. Beneath the surface of this vibrant city thrived a dangerous world of organized crime. Among the many criminal enterprises that plagued Los Angeles, the Ortega drug cartel stood out as one of the most ruthless and elusive. Its leader, Miguel Ortega, was a man of power and violence, and his cartel controlled a significant portion of the city's drug trade. Officer Jack Mitchell was a seasoned undercover cop in his early 40s. Born and raised in Los Angeles, Jack had joined the police force 15 years ago, driven by a deep-seated desire to combat the criminal elements that plagued his hometown. Over the years, he had earned a reputation for his remarkable ability to blend into various criminal environments, making him the go-to officer for high-stakes undercover missions. Despite his tough exterior, Jack had a quiet, introspective nature. He was known among his colleagues for his dedication to his work and his strict adherence to the principles of justice. Miguel Ortega, in his late 30s, was the feared leader of the Ortega cartel. Originally from a small village in Mexico, Ortega had risen through the criminal ranks with a combination of brutal tactics and cunning intelligence. His cartel was known for its ruthless efficiency and its tight control over its operations. Ortega was a man of imposing stature with a commanding presence. His reputation for violence was matched only by his ability to maintain an iron grip on his criminal empire. Elena Ortega, Miguel's wife, was a strikingly beautiful woman in her early 30s. Born into a modest family in Mexico, Elena had married Miguel shortly after he began to rise in the criminal world. Despite her glamorous appearance, she lived a life of confinement and fear, isolated from the outside world by her husband's paranoia and control. Elena was intelligent and perceptive, qualities that made her both a valuable asset and a vulnerable target within the cartel's hierarchy. The operation had been months in the planning. Jack Mitchell had been meticulously preparing for this mission, studying the cartel's operations and learning the nuances of their activities. His assignment was clear: infiltrate the Ortega cartel, gain their trust, and gather intelligence that would lead to their downfall. The mission was perilous, and Jack knew that one misstep could cost him his life. But his dedication to the cause overshadowed his fears. Jack adopted the alias Ricky Navarro, a small-time drug dealer with a history of minor criminal offenses. He was introduced to the cartel through a series of carefully orchestrated meetings with low-level operatives. Jack's knowledge of the drug trade and his convincing portrayal of a street-smart hustler helped him blend in. His demeanor was one of cautious confidence, allowing him to navigate the treacherous world of the cartel with a careful balance of assertiveness and discretion. His integration into the cartel's operations was gradual. Initially, Jack was given menial tasks, running errands and handling low-level transactions. His ability to handle these tasks efficiently and without drawing attention to himself earned him the respect and trust of the cartel's inner circle. He was soon given more significant responsibilities, including transporting drugs and managing some of the cartel's minor distribution networks. As Jack's position within the cartel strengthened, he found himself in the opulent world of Miguel Ortega's private life. The Ortega estate was a sprawling mansion in the hills of Los Angeles, a symbol of the cartel's power and wealth. It was here that Jack's path crossed with Elena Ortega. Their first encounter was during a social gathering at the mansion, where Elena was hosting a lavish event to celebrate her husband's latest achievement. Jack had been tasked with overseeing security for the event, a position that allowed him to move freely among the guests. Elena's beauty and grace stood in stark contrast to the violent world of the cartel. Despite her efforts to maintain a composed facade, Jack could see the sadness in her eyes, a reflection of the isolation and fear she lived with daily. Their initial conversation was polite and formal, but there was an undercurrent of mutual curiosity. Over the following weeks, Jack and Elena's interactions became more frequent. Elena, intrigued by Jack's apparent confidence and the air of danger surrounding him, sought him out for private conversations. Their exchanges started innocuously, but gradually deepened as they discussed their lives, their fears, and their aspirations. Jack was careful to maintain his cover, presenting himself as a hardened criminal who had little regard for the niceties of life. Elena, in turn, opened up to him in a way she had not with others. What began as a seemingly innocent connection soon evolved into something more intense. The lines between Jack's professional duties and personal feelings began to blur. The affair between Jack and Elena started as a secret, hidden from the prying eyes of the cartel. They found moments of privacy in the grandiose surroundings of the Ortega estate, in quiet corners away from the prying eyes of Miguel's associates. Their relationship was fraught with danger, yet it was a source of comfort for both of them. For Elena, Jack represented a glimpse of freedom and an escape from her oppressive life. For Jack, the affair was both a source of emotional complexity and a strategic advantage. As he grew closer to Elena, he gained access to more sensitive information about the cartel's operations and Miguel's plans. Jack's ability to remain undercover while navigating this dangerous relationship was a testament to his skill and discipline. However, the affair introduced an element of unpredictability into the mission. Jack was acutely aware that any slip-up could jeopardize not only his life, but also the success of the entire operation. Despite the risks, he continued to balance his dual roles, striving to maintain his cover while gathering crucial intelligence. As the days turned into weeks, Jack's infiltration of the Ortega cartel reached a critical point. His relationship with Elena had provided him with invaluable insights into the cartel's operations, but it had also entangled him in a web of personal and professional conflicts. The boundaries between his duties and his feelings had become increasingly blurred, setting the stage for the dramatic events that were to follow. The stage was set for a series of events that would test Jack's resolve and ultimately lead to a confrontation that neither he nor Elena could have anticipated. The hidden dangers of undercover work were closing in, and the choices they made would have far-reaching consequences for their lives and the fate of the cartel. The allure of secrecy and danger had initially fueled Jack Mitchell's relationship with Elena Ortega, but as their affair deepened, so did the complexities of their situation. The opulence of the Ortega estate, which once seemed like a sanctuary for Jack, had now become a crucible of tension and peril. The environment that was once an asset for gathering intelligence had become a high-stakes battlefield, where every glance and whisper carried weight. Jack's role within the cartel had evolved significantly. His responsibilities grew more critical, and he was increasingly involved in the operational intricacies of the cartel's activities. His interactions with cartel members, though carefully managed, drew more scrutiny. The trust he had built with the cartel was fragile, and every misstep could unravel his cover. Elena, meanwhile, struggled with her own internal conflict. Her affection for Jack had transformed from an escape into a profound emotional entanglement. Her isolation and the constant surveillance by her husband and his associates had left her vulnerable. Jack was the only person who seemed to understand her plight and offer a semblance of hope. Their clandestine meetings, though filled with passion, were tinged with the underlying fear of discovery. Unbeknownst to Jack and Elena, the cartel's internal dynamics were shifting. Miguel Ortega, always vigilant and distrustful, had grown increasingly paranoid. His cartel operated with ruthless efficiency, and any hint of betrayal was met with immediate and severe retribution. Ortega's suspicions were often fueled by minor inconsistencies and the constant pressure to maintain his control over the cartel. One of Ortega's trusted lieutenants, Carlos Martinez, had begun to notice anomalies in Jack's behavior. Martinez was a loyal enforcer with a keen eye for detail, and he had started to question Jack's rapid ascent within the cartel. Martinez observed Jack's interactions with Elena and grew increasingly suspicious. He saw something in their exchanges, an intimacy that went beyond the professional realm of their criminal activities. The tensions within the cartel were exacerbated by rival factions vying for power. The competition was fierce, and the slightest hint of weakness could be exploited. Martinez's suspicions fed into the growing paranoia within Ortega's inner circle, leading to a volatile atmosphere where trust was a rare commodity. One fateful evening, the balance of Jack's precarious situation was disrupted. Miguel Ortega hosted a lavish party at his estate, celebrating a significant drug deal that had recently gone through. The mansion was filled with high-profile figures from the criminal underworld, all enjoying the fruits of Ortega's success. Jack was present, tasked with overseeing the security for the event, but his mind was preoccupied with thoughts of Elena. During the party, Ortega's paranoia reached a tipping point. He had received an anonymous tip about a potential threat to his operation. The tip was vague but suggested that someone close to him might be compromised. Ortega, already on edge, decided to conduct a covert investigation. His scrutiny fell upon his closest associates, including Jack. Martinez, under Ortega's orders, began a covert surveillance operation, monitoring Jack's movements and communications. The surveillance was meticulous, capturing every interaction between Jack and Elena. It was during this period that Martinez uncovered undeniable evidence of the affair. Hidden cameras and wiretaps revealed the depth of their relationship, and the incriminating footage was delivered straight to Ortega. The revelation of Jack and Elena's affair was explosive. Ortega's rage was palpable, and his reaction was swift and brutal. Convinced that Jack was not only betraying him on a personal level, but also compromising the cartel's security, Ortega ordered a full-scale crackdown. The once discreet nature of Jack's infiltration was now exposed, and the cartel's wrath was unleashed. The crackdown began with a series of violent purges within the cartel. Members who were perceived as weak or disloyal were eliminated with ruthless efficiency. Jack, who had managed to keep a low profile amidst the chaos, found himself in an increasingly perilous position. His cover was blown, and his every move was now under intense scrutiny. Elena, caught in the crossfire, faced the wrath of her husband's anger. Ortega's violent retribution extended to those he believed had been involved in the betrayal. Elena's status as the wife of the cartel leader offered her no protection. She was forced to navigate the treacherous environment created by Ortega's wrath while trying to shield Jack from the fallout. With the cartel's attention focused on Jack and Elena, the situation grew more desperate. Jack realized that he was running out of time. His once secure position was now a ticking time bomb, and he had to act quickly to salvage the operation and protect Elena. Jack attempted to use his knowledge of the cartel's operations to his advantage, seeking to outmaneuver Ortega and mitigate the damage. He reached out to his contacts within law enforcement, trying to provide them with critical information about the cartel's activities. However, the urgency of the situation and the need for discretion made communication challenging. Elena, for her part, was caught between her love for Jack and her fear for her own life. She made desperate attempts to contact Jack and warn him about the impending danger. Their communications were fraught with tension and urgency, as they both understood the gravity of their situation. The cartel's internal strife reached a climax when Ortega's paranoia led him to make a fateful decision. Convinced that Jack was not only a personal betrayer, but also a potential threat to the cartel's operations, Ortega ordered a final, decisive move. He planned a confrontation that would bring the situation to a head and deal with the perceived traitor once and for all. The final confrontation was set to take place at one of the cartel's hidden warehouses, a location known only to the inner circle. Ortega, flanked by his most trusted enforcers, prepared for the showdown. The warehouse was a fortress, heavily guarded and fortified to prevent any intrusion. Jack and Elena, fully aware of the imminent danger, made their final preparations. Jack's plan was to confront Ortega directly, hoping to buy time for law enforcement to intervene. Elena, caught in a state of despair and fear, was determined to stay by Jack's side, despite the risks. As the confrontation unfolded, the warehouse became a scene of chaos and violence. Jack and Ortega faced each other amidst the gunfire and shouts of the cartel's enforcers. The tension was palpable, and the outcome was uncertain. The events of the confrontation left a trail of devastation. Jack's attempt to confront Ortega and salvage the mission resulted in a violent clash that claimed multiple lives. The operation had reached its climax, and the consequences of Jack and Elena's actions were now fully realized. The fallout from the confrontation was severe, and the ramifications extended beyond the immediate violence. The investigation into the cartel's activities intensified, and the personal and professional costs of Jack's infiltration became evident. The boundaries between duty and betrayal had been crossed, and the consequences were both tragic and far-reaching. As the dust settled, the aftermath of the confrontation set the stage for the final chapter of Jack and Elena's story. The decisions made during this tumultuous period would shape the resolution of their fates and the ultimate outcome of the undercover operation. The chaos of the confrontation at the warehouse left behind a scene of destruction. The once pristine facility was now a battleground littered with the remnants of a fierce and bloody conflict. The air was thick with smoke and the acrid smell of gunpowder. The violence had claimed numerous lives, including that of Officer Jack Mitchell, who lay among the fallen, his mission and life tragically cut short. In the wake of the confrontation, the Ortega cartel was left reeling. Miguel Ortega's authority had been severely challenged, and his paranoia was now at its peak. The loss of key members and the public exposure of his cartel's operations placed him in an untenable position. The once mighty empire was crumbling under the weight of internal strife and external pressure. The law enforcement agencies, having received critical intelligence from Jack prior to the confrontation, launched an extensive investigation into the fallout. The authorities were now piecing together the events that had transpired, trying to make sense of the devastation. The investigation revealed the depth of corruption within the cartel and the extent of Jack's involvement. His undercover work had been both instrumental and perilous, and the truth about his mission came to light in the wake of his death. Elena Ortega, left to confront the wreckage of her life, was at the center of the investigation. Her role in the affair and the subsequent events placed her under intense scrutiny. The authorities questioned her about her relationship with Jack and her involvement in the cartel. Elena, distraught and disoriented, struggled to come to terms with the loss of Jack and the betrayal she felt from her husband. Her cooperation with the investigation was marked by a mix of fear, sorrow, and reluctant honesty. The investigation uncovered a web of deceit and betrayal that went beyond Jack's affair with Elena. The cartel's operations were scrutinized, revealing the extent of its criminal activities and the violence it had perpetuated. The evidence gathered during the investigation painted a damning picture of Ortega's empire, exposing its inner workings and the brutal methods used to maintain control. In the aftermath of Jack's death, Elena was left to face the consequences of her actions and her tumultuous relationship with both Jack and Miguel. She was initially placed under protective custody, as the authorities feared for her safety due to her connection to the cartel. Her testimony was crucial in understanding the full scope of the cartel's operations, but it also made her a target for those seeking revenge. Elena's life had been turned upside down. The luxurious world she once inhabited had become a distant memory. She was now living in a safe house, isolated and under constant guard. The psychological toll of the situation was immense. The loss of Jack, the crumbling of her marriage, and the realization of the dangers she had faced weighed heavily on her. Despite her personal turmoil, Elena chose to cooperate fully with the authorities. Her revelations provided key insights into the cartel's operations and helped in dismantling the remaining structure of Ortega's empire. Her bravery in coming forward and providing detailed information was instrumental in bringing justice to those affected by the cartel's actions. With the evidence collected and the testimony provided by Elena, law enforcement agencies launched a series of coordinated raids across Los Angeles and beyond. The raids targeted remaining cartel strongholds and key operatives who had managed to evade capture. The operations were swift and decisive, resulting in the arrest and prosecution of numerous cartel members. Miguel Ortega's fate was sealed as the investigations continued. With his empire in disarray and the authorities closing in, Ortega was eventually captured and brought to trial. The trial was a high-profile event, drawing significant media attention due to the scale of the cartel's criminal activities and the dramatic nature of Jack Mitchell's undercover operation. During the trial, the full extent of the cartel's brutality and corruption was laid bare. Elena's testimony was a pivotal element in securing convictions against Ortega and his associates. The trial revealed the personal and professional sacrifices made by those involved, and the justice system worked to ensure that the cartel's leaders faced accountability for their actions. Jack Mitchell's death marked a somber end to a courageous but ultimately tragic undercover mission. His sacrifice had been significant, and the impact of his work extended beyond his own life. The dismantling of the Ortega cartel was a testament to his dedication and bravery, though it came at a tremendous personal cost. In the aftermath, Jack was remembered as a hero who had risked everything to protect the city from a dangerous criminal enterprise. His colleagues and friends in law enforcement mourned his loss, honoring his memory with the respect and admiration he had earned through his years of service. Jack's family, though devastated by his death, found solace in the knowledge that his efforts had contributed to a greater cause. His legacy lived on through the reforms and measures put in place to prevent similar situations from occurring in the future. The tragedy of his death served as a stark reminder of the risks inherent in undercover work and the profound impact it could have on those involved. For Elena Ortega, the end of the trial marked the beginning of a new chapter. With the cartel dismantled and her husband behind bars, she was given the opportunity to rebuild her life. The authorities provided her with support and resources to help her transition to a new life, away from the shadows of her past. Elena's journey was one of healing and redemption. She faced the challenge of rebuilding her life from the ground up, grappling with the emotional scars left by her involvement with the cartel and her relationship with Jack. The process was gradual and filled with obstacles, but Elena was determined to move forward. As she worked towards a new beginning, Elena also became an advocate for those affected by organized crime. Her experiences and insights allowed her to contribute to efforts aimed at supporting victims and preventing the spread of criminal activity. Her work in this area was a way to honor Jack's memory and make a positive impact on the world. The resolution of Jack Mitchell's mission and the subsequent fallout underscored the complexities and dangers of undercover work. The confrontation with the Ortega cartel had brought about a significant shift in the criminal landscape of Los Angeles, and the consequences of Jack's actions had far-reaching implications. Jack's sacrifice was a poignant reminder of the high stakes involved in the fight against organized crime. The story of his infiltration, the affair with Elena, and the ultimate collapse of the cartel was a testament to the courage and commitment required to confront the darkest elements of society. The legacy of Jack Mitchell lived on through the justice served, the reforms implemented, and the lives touched by his bravery.